I put it up on SlideShare just in case this might happen. It seems to always happen. I don't know why this technology is not more perfect. So that's me. My little QR code has got everything about me in it. My friend Christine over there also has one of these. This is called a social print. But if we go to the next slide, I want to tell you about, I work across the street, across Madison Square Park. No, that's the last one. That's even more last. Can you go to the beginning? All right, and go to the next one. There you go. Anyone recognize this? This is one of my favorite places in New York. It's just down the block on Broadway. It's the Green Market at Union Square. It's one of 50 farmers markets throughout New York City. And it's a great example of the local food movement. But here's the problem. We don't need a local food movement. We need something much bigger, much bolder. We need a local food system. We need a hyper-local, a fan of a local food system. And I don't just mean a local food system, I mean a hyper-local food system, a revolutionary new infrastructure for enabling cities like New York City to feed themselves. Now, we need to make a transition from this great movement to a new and really literally green industry. Now, the good news is that many things are happening in the world that make this imaginable. Advances in technology, agriculture, social entrepreneurship, all of these mean that we can really begin to imagine the kind of intelligent food system we want to have. Let's go to the next slide. So when I say food, when I say a food system, what am I talking about? What we really mean when we talk about a system is something that all the parts are interconnected, they interoperate, and they have like an intentional design, a purpose. So this hyperlocal food system would be end-to-end. So it would include growing, food processing, distribution, wholesaling, all the parts. Now, if it's going to be an intelligent food system, it also has to do some things better. It has to be more efficient. There's a lot of waste in how food is produced today. It has to be safer. You know, we're all aware of problems with food safety. And it's got to be able to scale up so that we can deliver enough food to satisfy our needs. The thing about systems is this. We need to do for local food what the iPod and the iPhone and iTunes have done for music and for mobile apps. We need to do for local food what ATMs and credit cards and mobile banking have done for all kinds of transactions. So the challenge here is that we need to begin by thinking differently about how we grow food, where we grow it, and who's going to do the growing. So let's try the next slide there. That button right there. There you go. All right, so where? Now, the problem with this idea of a local food movement is that it's not really local. It's regional, and there's nothing wrong with that. We're going to need all that food grown in upstate New York and Long Island and elsewhere. But we need something that's going to be really local. So some of this is going to be grown right in cities, and it's going to be grown with new techniques and greenhouses and urban farming and so on. But more of it, if we're going to feed not just the city, but the whole metropolitan region, is going to also have to happen right at the edges. So throughout the sort of greater metropolitan area. Next is, of course, how. So growing techniques are going to be different too. Some of these environments are going to be indoors, and they're going to use LED lighting and hydroponics or aquaponics, all new technologies. In fact, this is a company called Plant Lab in the Netherlands that uses blue and red LED lights that help plants grow faster. And so that means that you can also have year-round production and potentially higher yields as well. Of course, the who is very important. And who's going to do all this growing? Well, this is the natural fit. We have a big, deep jobs hole, but we also have a lot of smart, educated young adults who are just coming into the workforce now. And they have, I think, the intellectual and the physical and the moral muscle to change the world. So I'm counting on them to be an important part of like a whole new generation of growers, people who probably would never think of themselves as farmers, but maybe that they'll think of themselves as social entrepreneurs. So the other thing about the jobs front is that the growing in this local, hyper-local food system is only going to be part of it. Many of the other jobs will be part of the distribution channel, processing, and retail. So let's move ahead there. So the building block of this idea is a startup or a franchise idea that I call the co-farm. And it probably won't look like a farm, but it would be co in the sense of being co-owned, managed and operated by, you know, maybe 5 to 10 young social entrepreneurs. It's the kind of thing where you might think of it as like the urban, very American, for-profit version of a kibbutz, of the kind of communal farms system that has changed and helped grow Israel. It would be co in a couple other ways if we could go ahead. So first of all, it's got to be commercial. This has got to be something that makes money, that is a living, that isn't a hobby, that is sustainable as a small business. It's got to be cooperative. And the idea here is that this infrastructure would be very different and shared. And there's a lot of cooperative farms out there in Vermont and elsewhere. But I'm talking about the whole system being smarter and more cooperative and engineered to do that. And of course, if it's going to happen and be part of how cities become smarter, it's got to be co-created with cities and with citizens. It's got to be something that gets built into the fabric of city life. So, I also think in terms of a model. If this is going to scale and happen rapidly and be very viral, it has to be a model that can be replicated, that can be implemented very easily, that can be continuously improved. And so I'm drawn back towards the analogy of the Linux operating system. Open source, open innovation. So in a sense, you would have a design that everyone could use, no one would own, but that could allow this building block to happen faster. So in starting to think about this, I actually started looking around, and I was astonished to find out how much of this is already happening in New York. And so I want to take you through some examples of where I think this is beginning to take place. So this is Gotham Greens. It's right across the river in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, and they're aiming to grow 30 to 40 tons of fruit and vegetable. They're going to be using solar panels for power and capturing rainwater. Next is several startups that are actually in this neighborhood. This is Bright Farm Systems. If any of you know about it, it's a very interesting model where they want to build hydroponic greenhouses right on top of supermarkets. Collapse the food chain right down to the point of sale. Fresher, the produce lasts longer. There's tons of reasons why it's a good idea. This next one is called Big Box Farms. And their model is quite interesting too. They want to retrofit warehouses, make them very energy and water efficient, and co-locate them near major food distribution centers like Hunts Point in the Bronx. Both of these we could, are close enough to shout out to. So next is this whole idea of vertical farming is actually homegrown too. So Dixon de Pommier up at Columbia University is really one of the thought leaders and pioneers of this, but the idea is that agriculture gets integrated into buildings and it takes advantage of the tremendous amount of floor space in high-rises. It sounds science fictional, but it also sounds like it makes a lot of sense. Let's go forward. I think I see Danielle Gould here. Danielle Gould is the founder of Food Plus Tech Connect, and this is also I guess a Brooklyn-based website that is bringing together information technology and food system thinking. They have great features like hacking the food system, and you know, she's an example of this generation of people with the energy and making the effort to, you know, reimagine the world. We've got another Brooklyn example coming up here. Thank God for SlideShare. This is an operation in Brooklyn called BK Farmyards. Stacy Murphy is the founder of this. And what they're doing is aiming to bring together landowners and people who want to be these urban farmers. And as she reports, there are 52,000 acres of backyards in New York City. And there's 10,000 acres of unused land that the city could potentially be applying towards some of these efforts. Now, small scale farming has also seen a lot of innovations, and one of them is called spin farming, which stands for small plot intensive farming. And it's something that can use in an acre of land, produce up to $50,000 worth of produce. I mean, that's not like, you know, your amateur garden, but it shows that like some of this is quite feasible and possible. As I mentioned, the distribution system and all the other pieces of this new idea of an urban food system are really important. And I just wanted to end with a couple of examples here. Up in the right corner is a Seattle-based startup called Stockbox Grocers. And what they're aiming to do is to have a sort of pop-up green grocer packed into a shipping container that could be easily brought into a neighborhood and set up in an empty lot. And this could be one of the ways to address one of the challenges that probably you've heard about urban food deserts, about neighborhoods that don't have access to healthy and affordable food. The other one is Holton Farms, and what they're doing, they're like this community-supported agriculture model where you kind of subscribe to the farm. But I like what they're doing here is that they're essentially following the model of the food truck explosion. You know, you can't walk down the block and not find all these different food trucks. But what if we did that with fresh produce produced, you know, throughout and around you know, the urban system? I love this idea, and I just wanted to wrap up here with a couple of thoughts. The first is that clearly this local food movement shows us that there's a will. And the ideas and the technologies are coming together to make this urban food system a possibility. And if we want to create the food system that we want, we're going to need to do that in order to you know, dislodge the unsustainable elements of the food system we have. And, you know, like the song says, if we can make it work here in New York, we can make it work anywhere. So thank you very much for listening. And there's one last slide. I just want to dedicate this to my father-in-law, who would have loved this idea very much. Thank you very much.